just want to make sure that we are live. Okay. Oh, yep, we're live. All right. So let's fix my hair. Okay. So, hey guys. So today I wanted to just kind of talk a bit about my journey kind of thing with HLHS. Technically it's not my journey, it's my son's. He is 7 now, and yeah, so I wrote a few notes about like timing and stuff. If you guys want to leave any comments or ask any questions or tell about your story or whatever, that would be great. Okay, so I'm gonna start with the very beginning, which was the pregnancy. So on May 2nd, we found out, and we didn't tell anybody because we were scared. So it ended up being a secret pregnancy. So we ended up calling a abortion clinic at one point, and I was too far along, so our only option was adoption, and we kind of put it off too long, so we didn't end up going that route, and I'm really glad that we didn't because I love my son. Yeah. So I started college in September. So sorry, May 2nd of 2013 was when we discovered I was pregnant. And so September 4th of 2013, I started college. And so I was pretty much just in college for the first few months up to like the first semester pretty much. And I took art and design fundamentals, and I didn't really like it. I was kind of forced to stay at home, and I wanted to kind of move away for college, but that wasn't an option. So I was kind of miserable in college, and I didn't do a lot of my assignments, and that's probably why I didn't like it very much. But yeah, so I did a semester of college, and then on December 28th of 2013, we told David, which is my now husband's mom, about the pregnancy. And so I had been due on Christmas Day, and that's the 25th, and now it's the 28th, and we were kind of freaking out because we didn't know what to do. And I wasn't showing very much, which is another reason we were able to kind of keep it secret for so long. And she said that I probably still had like another month because I wasn't very big. And then the next day, on the 29th, I went into labor. I ended up having contractions and stuff. And something funny about the story is that I had texted David and I was like, hey, I think I'm in labor, I'm having contractions. And so I was timing them and everything, and they were like, I don't know, 10 minutes apart at this point, and it was early morning and stuff. And then he's like, oh, okay, well, just come walk on over. And he lived like, I don't know, 4 blocks away. And I was like, well, can you come pick me up? And he's like, no, you can walk, I'll meet you halfway. So I walked, and the walking didn't really help. My contractions were coming every 3 minutes or every 5 minutes now. And so he met me halfway, and we walked to his house. And when we were timing it, I was like, well, there's 5 minutes. And his mom's like, oh, you have time to have breakfast then, because she's had 4 kids, so she knows this, right? And so I eat scrambled eggs, and then they're like 2 minutes apart. So we're like, okay, we're going to go to the hospital now. The hospital's like 20, 30-minute drive, something like that. So we drove there. The hospital didn't believe I was pregnant because there was no record of it, because I hadn't seen a doctor because I was 18 and sex education didn't really do much for me, because my peers were all very immature, so we never really actually got sex education. But yeah, so I didn't know I was supposed to see a pediatrician. And yeah, so they had to do a bunch of tests really quick, and I had to like pee in a bottle and all this stuff, or pee in like one of those little jars, and I ended up throwing up because I have an issue with urine. And yeah, so then they finally believed me that I was pregnant, because I guess they did tests, whatever the tests they did. Plus they hooked up like this thing to my stomach to like look at the contractions and stuff, and they saw that there was contractions happening. And yeah, so I ended up having to have my water broken for me by the doctor. They had like this pointy stick thing, and so that happened. And so he was born on December 29th, and he was 9 pounds 3 ounces. And yeah, so then the next month was pretty good. He came home a few hours before New Year's, so December 31st at 11 something or something like that. And so he was home to ring in the new year, and my parents had actually picked us up from the hospital and drove us back to the house, back to my he was my boyfriend at the time, but David's mom's house. So we pretty much, that was my first day living with him and out of home. So January 1st, we were home for the first time. January 3rd was a doctor appointment where the doctor checked his weight and everything, and he seemed good. On the 12th of January, we had a kind of meet and greet baby shower, which was really nice. I was a bit anxious and I didn't really want to be there, in all honesty, but I was there. Everyone got to hold the baby and stuff like that. On January 17th, I officially dropped out of college. I went to the college and did all the paperwork and stuff. On January 21st, we had another doctor appointment, and he noticed that Timmy was starting to lose weight. He wasn't gaining anymore. So then we tried booking an appointment with a pediatrician, but it got canceled a couple times because of weather, because we live in Canada, so weather's kind of, snow can be really bad. On January 25th, we went and visited a friend who actually, her son was born the same day as Timothy, so that was really fun. On February 7th, we finally got in to see the pediatrician, and what ended up happening the day before was Timmy started throwing everything up, and he started breathing really heavily with his abdomen. And so when we went in on the 7th, he was still throwing up and stuff. And the pediatrician took one look at him and said that we were going to Sick Kids, which is a hospital about 1.5 to 2 hour drive away, that specializes in taking care of children with medical issues. And so, so the pediatrician sent us to the hospital that was right near where Timmy had actually been born. And so we waited there, and he was on oxygen until a ambulance from Sick Kids came and picked him up. While we were in the hospital, they asked where he was born, and I said, oh, he was born here in this hospital. And they're like, really? How did we not notice this? And how did a obstetrician not notice this? And I'm like, oh, well, I never really had an OB. And they're like, oh. And so some doctors kind of scolded us because we didn't have an obstetrician, and so there was no way that they could have kind of checked for this defect before he was born. And again, we didn't know that we had to do that. So not all of the doctors penalized us, which was nice, but a few did. And we were 18 and we didn't know. So then so I couldn't go in the ambulance with Timmy because they had a paramedic in training in the ambulance. So I ended up, my mom drove me home so I could pack a bag, and then David's mom drove both of us to the hospital. And so on February 8th, because this was an overnight thing, he didn't end up getting picked up from the hospital until 8 or 9 p.m. It was a long delay. I think we waited 5 hours before the ambulance came. But anyway, so it was officially February 8th before we finally got to talk to anybody. And we got the postnatal diagnosis, which was, one second, I have to read this. It was double inlet left ventricle article I'm just gonna show you guys. Let's see if I can show this on here, because it would be a lot easier. Share screen. Let's see if I can do this. Share that. Okay, so you see this all right here. This is what he was diagnosed with, all the issues that he had, and then they labeled it as left heart syndrome. And on the 14th, he had his surgery, which was the first out of 3, and it was the Norwood surgery. I'm just going to show you guys all my notes here. So then he had a lot of complications. during his surgery, he ended up having 2 heart attacks, and his heart was very swollen, so they had to leave his chest open, and it ended up the closing of his chest ended up getting prolonged for a few weeks. On March 2nd, on March 1st, the pacemaker was disconnected, and the nasal tube for medication was removed. He was moved. So probably around that time, his chest was also closed. I don't see in my notes where it says otherwise. So his chest was probably closed a day or two before that. On March 3rd, he was moved up to 4D, which the requirements were for him to be off morphine and the NEC watch. Okay. He had on March 8th, he had bloody stool. They had an abdominal x-ray. They were suspicious of LUQ pneumatosis. I'm not quite sure what that is. I don't remember. But it was pretty much like internal bleeding is what they were looking for. They stopped feeding for 7 days just to kind of see if he would keep passing blood. He ended up having 3 seizures within like a 24-hour kind of window. MRI revealed a small stroke, which was the result of a blood clot on the right. Yeah, anyway, so on the right side of his brain, he ended up having a little blood clot that had broken off from either his heart or they had one of the IVs that he had in his neck. And so now he's watched by neurology as well as cardiology. Then he had an allergic reaction to metadectin, and it resulted in low blood pressure. He started refeeding on the 15th of March. He gets unwell and stops feeding for 4 more days. March 17th, he had a follow-up CT head scan. No infection or hemorrhage was found. He had abdominal ultrasound. AXR were not considering for the NEC thing. Oh, shoot. He started weaning off of the Milodrone, which I believe is a very strong painkiller. He completely stopped taking it, and he started taking so it's either a painkiller after started taking captopril for an after reaction. Yeah, okay. April 4th. So pretty much from the 4th to the 10th, things were starting to look better, and we ended up moving into a private room, and then we went home. So the next few months, we ended up we had to do like weekly and then bi-weekly visits. And during one of the visits on May 6th, they saw an irregularity in his echocardiogram, which is where they check like the electrical pulses of the heart. He ended up staying overnight for prolonged QT, and then we were able to go home the next morning. Nothing really happened during June. He was just home. We had our frequent visits at the hospital. He had his second surgery canceled twice in July, and then he finally had his Glenn July 25th of 2014. The next few months, there's a lot of notes here. So May... Oh, did I mess up somewhere? Did I mess up on my thing? May 6th. Oh, I did. I repeated this stuff. So where are we? Surgery canceled. Okay. And then, so we just have to read this part. So he was moved to 4D, the stroke fellow consultation, get weaning sheet, all that stuff. he was off oxygen, tubes taken out. Oh, I don't know what I did there. Yeah, and then we were discharged by the 30th. So, yeah, we were only in there for like 5 days. So it was a really quick bounce back for him. Okay, and then this was the last slide that I had time to make. So we'll just read this, and then I have other notes on a Word document that I can refer to. Because I was trying to move all of my notes from my Word document onto here, and I only thought of doing this at like half an hour ago, and I was like, oh well. But, oh, look at that font change. Okay, so May 2017. So if you remember, his last surgery before this happened in 2014. The next surgery didn't happen until 2017. So he had his last surgery, which is the Fontan. And he was only there for, again, like 7 days. It was really quick recovery. He ended up coming home. And I wish I knew where the video was. But when we got home, nobody else was home yet. Because David's sister was watching my other son, Hunter. And so, sorry, backtrack a little. In 2015, I ended up finding out I was 2014, sorry. When was this? Yeah, so after Timmy's discharge, we ended up finding out that I was pregnant. And why is this stuff still all here? This should not be here. No, go away. Okay, so anyways, so we found out that I was pregnant in 2014, and then we ended up having my son in 2015, and there was a whole bunch of like ECGs and prenatal echoes and stuff that ended up going into ended up having to be weaved into my prenatal care. And at this point I knew what prenatal care was and stuff. I ended up waiting 3 months before telling my doctor I was pregnant, and he's like, oh well, you need to tell me sooner next time. And I'm like, okay. So I kept that in mind for when I had my daughter. And so he had a lot of like prenatal ECGs and stuff. And then someone's playing on the door. But anyway, so then there's a bunch of prenatal ECGs and everything. And then regular doctor OB visits on top of that. And then he was born March of 2015. And now back to the last surgery and everything. So he had his last surgery May of 2017. I don't quite remember the day. I believe it was like kind of early May. But so he had his Fontan then, and he was only in hospital for like 7 days. And so then when we came home, nobody else was home. And my now sister-in-law was watching my other son, Hunter. And so when Hunter came home, he had this big thing of balloons, and he like ran into the room, and he was so happy, and he ran right over to Timmy, and Timmy jumped off the couch, and Hunter put the balloons down, and they both just started whacking at them. Oh my gosh, it was so cute. And I filmed it. I just don't know where the video is. But anyways, so that happened in May of 2017, and then Timmy started school that year, but he didn't end up starting school until October or November. He started a bit late just because we wanted to make sure that his chest was all healed up properly and that his ribs were solid enough to handle whatever school would throw at him. And so he went to school, and he didn't end up having if you watch my video on the Fontan procedure, you'll see at the end of that video that there was like this little hole that they had made. It was kind of like, they explained it to me as it was like an overflow kind of valve or hole for any blood that like for blood. That way the lungs and heart didn't get overwhelmed from everything from the Fontan. And so April 2020, during the COVID lockdown, we ended up having to go to Sick Kids, and he had that closed up. And that was that. Oh, backtrack again. 2018, between the surgery and the hole being closed up, we found out I was pregnant again. And so Timmy had, because of Timmy's heart condition, I again had to undergo all of the prenatal echoes and everything, and all that stuff. And we ended up having our daughter, Roslyn. and she ended up being induced a few weeks early because my second son was 11.5 pounds at birth. And so when I was pregnant with her, they were predicting she would be close to 13 pounds. So I ended up being induced about 2 weeks early, and she was 9 pounds 1 ounce, so she was pretty big too. But yeah, and then so when Timmy had this procedure done with the little hole being closed, I think it was my mom watched Rosalind and somebody else watched Hunter. I don't think my mom watched them both, just because Rosalind was still like a little baby and in diapers and everything. But she's still in diapers, so yeah, she would have been in diapers. Oh, I guess she wouldn't have been a baby. She'd be like a toddler still. Anyways, either way. But yeah, so that is pretty much where we have come. Timmy is 7 now, and he is thriving. He's doing amazing. And yeah, I'll see if there's any questions, but I think that is about it for the video, guys. So there's no questions or any comments or anything. So yeah, that's our story, where we've come from, everything we've done. During 2020, before the lockdown, on February 29th, my now husband and I got married, and the kids were so excited, and they were part of the wedding. And yeah, they just loved it. So yeah. So I guess I will see you guys in the next video. I'm actually doing live writing sprints in about an hour and a half. So I will see you all then. If you haven't watched my other videos on HLHS and long QT syndrome and the surgeries that go into kind of not restructuring, but like kind of making the heart functional for HLHS children, then feel free to check out the playlist I have. I can't remember if I called the playlist HLHS or CHD week, but this video will be the last one in that playlist, so you should be able to click the link in the description to get to that playlist. But yeah, so that is all I have for you guys today, and I will see you guys later in the next video. Bye!